this is a shout out to Marie. I don't know your last name if you're watching this, and she is the one who goes by the handle of Extraordinary Everyday on YouTube. She gave a free version of this particular spreadsheet software for people to use, and then she went upwards and made a second version. And the first version, if I can find it, is simple, easy, but explains probably better as an overview of what is going on here than what I did with my complex version. So I will try to find it real quick and get you hooked up with it to see what it's about. So this is it right here, and with it, this is in 2019, and it's pretty straightforward as far as you can see. It's a spreadsheet here on the side. There's 7 students. I don't think you can see up close without me going in, but there's students values in there, and I guess she had 7 students that she was dealing with. I don't know. I've never met her. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The colors are irrelevant, other than just they're there for the color of the student. And then over here, these colors and that color doesn't match up to anything to do with these colors. It's not that's irrelevant. It's just for her own clarity. So whether it was her or her husband or someone else that was helping her, they started out with this entire spreadsheet with just one sheet, and that was it. And they have a calendar here, and they have they reference this calendar to get the actual numerical numbers at the top. So this is partly a review of her 2 versions, version 1, version 2, and then what I did. So this video will be a bit longer, and just so you know ahead of time, I have an congenital from birth. I have an anxiety disorder that I usually have a really low heart rate, but if I get too stressed about something, I get foggy headed. I can't think too well, and I may trip over my words. I do tend to speak faster. That's part of my compensation for when I get nervous. I tend to talk faster, though it may not necessarily be coherent to what I'm teaching, because I typically will get ahead of myself because I'm trying to subconsciously avert a shutdown on my system, my nervous system, so my facts and figures kind of jumble at times. So if you experience that with what I'm doing, I apologize. It's just part of who I am. It's been who I am. I'm 57 years old, so I've been dealing with most of my life, and I didn't know about it until just within a couple of years that I had this issue that was made me who I am. So I'll go on with what I was saying. So she used this calendar side, the numbers that you see here, and there's no dates in here, it's just numbers. So she's got 1 through, and there's some gaps in there, which is really cool. That's got a purpose, through 33. So her school year was basically from June back to September. That was the school year that she was homeschooling with, and she was using Acellus Academy. So with that in mind, Acellus, you can do it 52 weeks a year. You don't have to do it just 33. You can do whatever you want to. It's a homeschooling software, and you can do Acellus with their Power Homeschool, which means you can have your own program that you're doing, and then you can supplement with Power Homeschool and just incorporate their different classes, and you can offer your children class credit that way. Because there are obviously some classes that are just very hard to teach, that really takes a professional, someone who knows their business, to teach it. So it's really cool. But then there's also Acellus Academy, and my children, they're twins, they're 15, they're in Acellus Academy. And so you might hear a cat. The cat just jumped up on my computer. You might hear it meow at me, complain. Anyway, sorry about that. He just jumped up and almost tried to walk on the keyboard while I was trying to do this, and that would have messed me up. So that's why I announced that there's a cat, because he might holler out and tell me how it is. So anyways, my sons are twins. They're 15. They are, of course, sons, boys, and not that matters, but they're at an age where they're trying to figure it out. They're ready to go to college. They don't know what's going on, so they would like to project what's going on with their lives. And I'm at a stage as a father, and I'm divorced. I'm at a stage as a father to try to give them more of the reins to where they can start learning to plan out their education, because when they get to college, here I am, I'm speaking fast because I get nervous, and I do speak fast when I get nervous. I'll try to slow down. But I want them to tend to understand the cause and effect of taking time off from school and how it'll affect their longevity, their projections, and what they're doing. So that's where I'm at right now. And so this little step planner that Extraordinary Everyday designed wasn't perfect for my needs, but it really suited the basis for the beginning of my needs, because I do not know Excel, the Excel, like Microsoft Excel. I don't know the code to it. I don't really understand the formulas, and I also, it's based, LibreOffice Calc is based off of Excel, so I don't know. I know some formulas. You can auto some things. I know a couple things because I took some things in college many years ago, and I just don't know much about it. So when I got this, I was like, how does this work? How did they do that? I've got a lot to learn. So within a period of 3 weeks, I was able to come to the point to produce what I was comfortable with, but it was a steep learning curve. Now, I have background in the 2000s, 1998, at that time period, 2000s, roughly the early 2000s, 2010s, that decade of experience with something called VB Script, Visual Basic Scripting, and Microsoft Excel that uses VBA, or Visual Basic Applications. And because of my experience there, I was able to understand the logic to get what I wanted, but I didn't know in the terms of a Office program how to use my logic and scripting to produce the logic that I wanted to produce in a spreadsheet. But with the help of ChatGPT, that program's awesome. So I said, this is the logic I want. I know what I want, but I don't know how to produce it in your language, or in that language. And so ChatGPT produced the formulas that I needed to get me to where I needed to go. All right, so when you're looking at this particular program where they have a calendar, and they did it real simple, just, this one month had pink, one had orange, one had green, or whatever, as you see it. I don't know what color that would be. That's not green, but it's brown green. And then the key takeaway is, like, if you didn't want to include a week ending with Acellus, the weeks always end on a Saturday and it starts on a Sunday. So if you didn't want a week right here out in here, the week of the 23rd, then you would just put a blank value or a textual value. And the code that they put into this is really cool, that it only looks for a numeric value to produce these numeric values up here. So you don't see it in this version of theirs. You don't see the benefit of any dates up here. You just see the week number, okay? But you won't know it. So when they came out with version 2, the one that I paid for $10 from teacher to teacher or something like that to download, it actually has dates here. It says goal here, but on that second version it has a date, which corresponds to the date here, which would be the ending date of each week. But you'll see in the next version that if you don't include, if you put a text version, like if you put something like off there or just leave it blank, over here on this side over here, it won't incorporate it into your schedule. So it's really cool the way it just lays out week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Even though if between week 4 and 5 there might be 6 weeks missing, you'd never know it, because unless you just looked at the date, the actual numerical date, you wouldn't know it, because it's still sequential. It doesn't go like 4 gap 5, 6, 7, 8. It doesn't do that. It just trot right along. I really like that. So I liked what Extraordinary Everyday, I just call her EE, I guess, or Marie, what Marie did, and it was pretty simple. It's kind of like mirrors what we already have through the apps, through Acellus, where you can see, you can see the total steps in the app of what your one class is, and you can see the current step of where they are, and you can see this. So this is basically based off of that. Now the remaining steps, you won't see that, but you can just do a thing of D4 minus E4. So cell D4 minus E4, or 9 at 46 minus 100 gives you. So they made this calculation, which is cool because Acellus doesn't provide that. And then you have this thing of recommended steps for a 15-week school year, which she has a 33. So I don't know why 15 is there unless I did that. So the recommended steps per week for her 33-week school year, which I got from over here, where it says 33 on the number, 33 right here. So she's got a 33-week year. So the recommended steps per week for a 33 year would be 26. Now, if for this particular class, if my son wants to take 30 steps per week, then it'll calculate 30, 60, 90, 120, and so on up until week 28. Now you'd have to come back over here, come back down here, and look and find week 28 would be April. So the week ending on April 25th, April is when that class will be done. But that's a lot of back and forth, up and down. Okay, so their next version they came out with helped to solve that problem. So, and also it says done, done, done after here, and it just has these zero values, which doesn't really mean much, but you know it's going to be zeros because it's all zeros here already, and it makes sense that these are numbers because you have the number, and then it makes sense too that you have done because the class is finished. All that makes sense, but that was their first version. Then they came out with their second version, which was more intuitive. I liked it a lot. This is the version I paid for, and so here they have the zeros. They still have the zeros. They still have the numbers. That's all there, and they still have the done, 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 and so basically, the only thing on this side of the ballpark that they changed was they included the actual textual representation of a date stamp, that you know the date. So, and they also no longer have the calendar out here to the side. So it looks like this now. It doesn't have the calendar. So what they did is they made the calendar and they developed a sheet, which these tabs are called sheets. And then they put the calendar in a really neat looking way. Now I got into it, and you can see their original 33, basically 33 weeks, one starting in August all the way up to 32. I had played with it a little bit, so it's changed because I don't think their original program included a whole year. I think I added that. That's why I put this. But I can't remember if I have so many versions of this. I'm not sure whose is whose. So. Actually, if it's got Father's Day, Memorial Day, Mother's Day, she added that. Okay, so that's her stuff, I guess. So anyways, her year starts in July, and that matches up with Acellus' year. If you guys aren't familiar with Acellus, they start July 1st. Well, I said it matches with. This is why it matches up. In Missouri is where Acellus is. It's in Kansas City. State law in Missouri says that the homeschooling year starts July 1st and it ends June 29th or June 30th. Okay, that's when it ends. So that's partly why this calendar is set up this way. And she chose for EE or Marie, she chose that she wanted to start her year on the week of August 13th. And she had all these different dates off and whatever, and it ends up here. But really, if you were to count the rows up this column, her total school year is longer. It's going to be 39 weeks because of the different weeks that she has off. She really has 39 weeks in her year, but as far as the academic year, there's only 32. So what happens is if you have off here, like if you have off and you want to take off this date right here for October 1st, 2022, ending in that's where you get the 1 from. Here is the last day of the week. Then when it's referred to over in the steps and goals that she has, it looks for numbers only in this column. It doesn't see anything else. It's just looking for numbers. So when she has off in here, it doesn't count the week. And that's why 7 and 8 are next to each other. But when you look down below 7 or 8, you won't see 10-1 because it's gone. You'll see 24 in 08 or 8. So let's look at that. So we're looking for week 7 and 8. And we're looking for the missing date, which is October 1st. So go over here, and you look at 7 and 8. Sorry if I make you sick by zooming in. 7, 8, and then 9/24 in October 8th, but there's no 31. So the program seamlessly does that, and I think that's really cool. I like that a lot. So they didn't change a lot on this side of the ballpark except for drop the calendar off and put it into a sheet, make the calendar a lot more robust, and it looks prettier. And then they made sure that instead of having a goal down there, they had a week actually that has a numeric value that you can understand. That instead of having to go over here and down, you don't have to, or go here then over here, you don't have to do that. It's represented right there. So that's a big upgrade. The next thing they upgraded was they came in here and they added this behind or ahead. So if a student was saying their goal was to be for week 1 was 10, this is actually everything's based off week 1, and that's one of the problems I'll get to that I had a problem with. But their goal for week 1 is also the same thing as this number. This is a formula. You can see it up here. So here's the number, and when you change this number, it makes it the same number. But for calculation purposes, they were needing this number for their calculations. I kept that logic, but it doesn't have to be kept necessarily. But I just went ahead with it. So say you were going to do the recommended steps instead. Again, it's 15 weeks, like the other one was, right? Her first version said 15 weeks. So let's change it to what she actually has is a 33-week year, and it changes the values. So the recommended steps for this class to get done within a 33-week year is 7.1 steps per week. And then this is what the student's going to try to do, and it gives them an idea about where it's going to land based on out here. And this other side, you'll see it like this is week 14. But it doesn't tell you that here right off. You have to go look for it. So if they're going to do 7 steps, but typically, say it's example subject, but say it's English and they're in high school, the most they can do is 40, right? And then it will increase. Actually, that's the wrong one I want to do. Yeah, you don't do anything with this. This is a calculation. She says that in the spreadsheet. The things that are highlighted in blue, that you don't have to change. It's this one here. And I'm used to dealing with my own program that I updated, so it's kind of different. Not much, but different. So say here as you put 40 in, it's going to make your goal 40. It should. Goal for week 1. Well, it doesn't do it. I don't know why. It's supposed to, but because that's what week 1 is. And I'm not really sure why that does that. So anyways, it's okay. And then, so 40, 80, 120, 160, 200. So if it's 234 in there, then you're going to get done in this ballpark, but see it's off by 1. And so this particular spreadsheet did have problems. And people were downloading it, and it was $10, but it did have some issues that, like I showed you here, you put in 40 steps per week. The goal should be 40 steps, which it is. There's week 1, 40 steps, but it doesn't quite give you the right thing. And not to her discredit, it may be just focused on the way I'm not. It's been 3 weeks since I looked at this, and I've seen a lot of code and I've done a lot of calculations, and I may simply have just forgotten. And she's got instructions in here, so to be fair to her, she's got instructions. You can overlook that and find that I'm incorrect in something, which is completely possible. So I was trying to achieve this aspect here, that if you were trying to get done, like say this, and you wanted to enter the current step, so you put your current week in here. So say you're on the 3rd week, it'll blacken this out, and that will help with some of this other calculations. So you put a 3 in there, and then you're on your 3rd week, and then it shows right here that, hey, you're behind, because technically you should have been ahead. So this is the number of steps I will complete each week, right? And the way enter your current steps, so you know you're behind by something because you're in your 3rd week, which ends up being 120, because 3 times, well, if I got the math right, 3 times that's 120 minus 45. No, yeah. So 120 minus 45 would give you 75. And that's where they come up with that. So if you did 120 minus 40, you come up with 80 there. See how it goes, 80. So that's what they're figuring out. So you're right there at 80. But if you had done maybe 120 steps, if that's what step number you're on, then you'd be at a break even. You're on pace or considered ahead. And of course, if you did 121, it would say you're 1 ahead. And so it has some really good ideas, but it's a lot of manual, a lot of hands-on, especially for a student, let alone a parent. They have to enter in, if they have 7 kids, they have to enter in all the steps for every kid that they've done, and it's a job. It becomes, the spreadsheet helps a lot, but then the spreadsheet becomes a job. And that's the issue. Here comes the cat. I don't know if you heard him. Like, go away. Leave me alone. So, he's a good cat. But he really demands a lot of attention. You hear him? What? Kiki? What? Oh, now you're not going to say anything? He's like, what do you want? I want something. Alright, so I just had issues, but it was better than the first one, and it still had some complications. I didn't like how these numbers dropped. Like, you can see it good here, and they drop down. That's actually controlled by something called conditioning formatting, conditional formatting, and you can cause, based on formulas and stuff that you can actually use in that level, you can affect a change in the cell, like its font size, its color, background. There's things that you can cause that to be something more than what this is right here. So I solved a lot of those issues in my version of what I did, but this was I paid $10 for it. It's 3 years old, 4 or 5 years old, whatever, and she stopped. I think she went into, if it's okay if she's still into that, I think from what I researched about her, she's into real estate, and so I don't even know if she's a homeschool mom anymore. I think her kids were in high school at the time that she made this, and maybe they're out and she's done with that aspect of her life. So anyway, so this is just a shout out to her. That's the background of what I know about her. I figure she's in real estate. Maybe she wants to sell real estate, so that's why I bring it up. So then I kept this aspect where you can add more, look, it darkened it out. I kept a lot of this aspect here of what's going on, but I changed it for a logic that worked for me, and I made it completely data driven to where you really don't have to, even as a parent, you don't really have to do much. Just incorporate the data that you can get from Acellus and just copy and paste the whole spreadsheets into new sheets that I make, and then you go with it. So I'll show you what I did there, and this gets even more complicated, but it's a bit more detailed and more useful for me. So again, this is a shout out to Marie from Extraordinary Everyday. My name is Jeffrey J. Law. That's my given name. I just put that on there so you know who I am and that I'm the one who updated it. So this is pretty interesting. So back to, let's start with this side over here. Okay, if I can center it up all right. I called this side weekly progress based off of this right here, and I put an arrow, okay? And but I made it different. This is all hypothetical. You can say someone started in the 12th week in a certain class. It doesn't matter. It doesn't attribute to them getting finished with the class any quicker or any slower. It's just for a visual reference of where a person is. So one of the things I did is if a person started a class before the current week, then it would just shade out all this in black and say this is where they should have been by now, but it's all basically, if you can metaphorically say, it's in the dark and this is in the light, right? So it's in the dark, it's in the past, but with the same token, a person can just put their start date another week 16 or week 25, and it doesn't really matter. So kids will sign up for a class and say, oh, I don't want to do that right now, can you archive that, and I'll get to it later. And then when you pull it out of archives, it has a start date of back here on Acellus, but for us, for our purposes, it doesn't matter. We can just say, okay, well, I'll just put it at week 28, right? Now that's not done from here, it's done from over here. So if I put week 28 for that class I was just pointing out, then there it is, week 28, and then that particular class ends here. Now the pink is only in reference to the idea that this is the longest, furthest running out class ever, that it'd be perhaps the last class a student's going to do. So if they're, for quick referencing, wanting to go back to look at their list of classes and say, how far out am I from graduating, or how far I'm about to sneeze. Hang on. Pardon me. How far out am I? Pardon me. I should use a mute on. I should use the mute on the mic for that. I should use a mute on the mic for that, which I just did. Okay. You can tell I'm not too technical for my age. I should be prepared for all this. So, with gadgets. So, anyway, so it just says, hey, okay, I know that week 68, but now they have a reference, like, not just week 68, but they have a reference to the actual date. So week 68 would put them in April 25th, 26th, right? And so you can look out here and look for that, and there it is, April 5th, April 25th, 26th, and it matches up. So they can get an idea like, oh, I want to go skiing over in the mountains in April in Colorado, so, or some other state, let's not do that. I'm going to work a little harder. Let's figure out let's put it at maybe week 20, okay? And then that will put them over here at February. Like, yeah, okay, I can do that better. I'll just work a little harder. And that gives them an idea of what they're dealing with. So again, with my students becoming older and they have to be commanders of their own college and plotting out their own classes they take and understanding how long something will take and how hard they have to work to achieve a certain goal, that's my objective in updating, amongst other things, updating what everyday, extraordinary every day. That's a lot of E's. But what Marie had already started, so I called this bottom half hypothetical steps, even though the data in it's factual, the projection on it's hypothetical, and it's not even really true to perhaps what the student's doing. Okay, and that's how this comes out, because they say they'll do 10 steps per week in a class or 40 steps a week in a class. Well, they might. Now, this very well would be 40 if it's a core class. They can't do any more than 40. But this one here, if it's a core class, they can do more, and they can do up to 40, or if it's a non-core, they can do 95 steps in a week. Same thing with this one, and it would change all these numbers. And so it's just hypothetical. So here's your week. We'll go back to this. This is your week number. That extraordinary every day, she had wanted a person to actually enter that date in here, and for my version, for whatever reason, I can't see the number. I don't know if it's just because it's not big enough. I don't think so. I just can't see the number, and I don't know what this little window is for, other than maybe a notation. I just don't know. No, it's not even a notation. So I don't know why that's there. So what I did was, because you have to manually put it in, so if I was manually putting it in, I said if I wanted to say week 28, I could do that, and then it would block out all this stuff and bring me to week 28. But I still didn't like the function of it. So when I came into it, what I did was, I came in here with my week 22, and I based it off of when I actually started, which was this. We started January 8th, not in the first week, but in the second week. And though that's not really a calculation for your purpose for 22, I made this data driven, so it's a calculation. It makes week number today 1, and it gives a basis for this. It's a calculation. I've got a ton of calculations in here that ChatGPT had me do. I still don't understand them, so I can't really explain them too well. I'll go back to what I was saying. So as a parent, all I do is I download my kids' hours from the Acellus, and I just copy straight verbatim, just straight. I just do this from in the other program. I hit copy, and then I come back over here and I hit paste, and that's all I do. And then same thing for steps. Hit copy, paste it, and then the way I designed it, it populates everything on the bottom half. I don't have to touch a thing. And even this week 22, that's automatically set up to start over on Sunday. Because that's when the Acellus week starts, so I just make it start then. That's how this is. It's based on today's date, and the week number means week number is really the day of when that week starts, on what day. So if it started on Saturday, it would be a 7. If it starts on Sunday, it would be a 1 up here for this value. So that's how that value comes. So I didn't have to automatically do anything. It's just, I don't have to update it. It's done on its own. So when it turns Sunday, we'll be on the 23rd week automatically, and hands-free, easy peasy, right? Same thing with the data. It populates everything. It updates all the hours the kids have done, and all the steps they've done. I don't have to change presets that I've done already, which is like high school English, and I added the grade. I added several of these things that Marie didn't have in here, and I improved this steps behind thing and all that to where I have a total steps behind or total steps ahead. And things that just kind of help the kids have a little more confidence that, yeah, they are doing a good job, even if something is negative 318. But that's really because I clicked on a bunch of classes. My son on this one's just only taken high school English 1 and high school or algebra 1, and he's not behind. He's actually ahead. So, and when it comes up here, these are projections. So, when you have the total current hours for my son, the only classes he's actually got hours in would be out English 1 and Algebra 1. So it's English 1 and Algebra 1 hours. Then he takes the amount that he's actually accomplished, the last steps, and then those are combined together. And then, so I'm just basically taking the value of these combined together with the value of the time combined together to come up with this steps per hour. So with the steps per hour, then my son can come in here and say, okay, Dad, I want to get done a certain amount of time. Now, if all these classes I've got checked off, and I added the check marks too that Maria didn't have that, Marie, if they had time values and if they had step values, then this date would be further out, probably better, in a better calculation, because this would be more reflective of their actual hours and their actual steps, their actual hours in class and actual steps completed per week for their academics. So I don't really have that, so I just mirrored it over here to enter my desired steps. Now this is where I have a hard time explaining what I did because it can get complicated, sort of. So let's just stick with this number being a constant because it is a formula, okay? It's a formula that I don't want to change. But this one is a value I enter, and this is a value I enter. In this one, there's 5 values in here that I enter. So in a sense, if you want to look at as far as anything that someone wants to play with, what I call the actual steps, they can play with those 5 numbers to get some pretty decent values on the long end. So say based on all these classes that are checked, which is basically just the accumulation of how many steps it takes to complete. So it's this one here. It's really just based off of that. In a year given on this formula here creates these values. So say my sons are currently doing 3 hours, one of them, this one here, he's doing 3 hours a day at a weekly rate of 5 days a week, then he can expect to probably get finished with all these classes of those particular the accumulation, this many credit, this many steps, okay? That many, he can finish that many steps by November 9th, 2027 if he's doing this per hour, 3.76 steps per hour. But if he drops down to an average of 2, it's for the entire year, that puts him out in 29. Oh, I mean, sorry, 29. It puts him, yeah, for this, it puts him at 6 hours a day, 3 days a week. 20. You see how it works? This orange one goes with all these orange tabs. Okay, but I don't want to change this value. That's why I changed this one, but I forgot. I didn't tell you that this goes with this. Okay, in the blue. So let's go back with this, 3.76. So we'll go back to that. So if we're on the orange one, he's getting 3.75 steps per hour. If he's doing 3 steps or 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, this is when he's going to get out. But if he wants to get out quicker than that, say he's going to graduate in May, he's going to have to either update his hours per day or his days per week, or really book it on getting more steps done per hour. So let's just say he's doing the best he can do, and this is the max that he can do with steps per hour is 3.75 steps per hour. So then he'll come in here with the steps. How many steps? I mean, how many hours? This is where I'm getting my anxiety coming in. I told you about earlier. So he has his steps. So again, his hours, and say he wants to up it up to 5 hours a day. 5 hours a day for 5 days a week. Now before it was just 3 hours a day. 3 hours a day puts him at November 27. Okay, the year 27. But if he updates it just to do more hours a day, 5 days a week, it puts him at 2026. So he could do 5 hours a day for 5 days a week for roughly 2.5 years. Or, he could do this for a year and a half, or he could do 3 hours a day for 5 days a week for 2.5 years. So if he can just step it up 2 hours, he'll be out a year early. 2 hours more a day. If he did it at 4, then it'd be somewhere in spring probably, right? March 30th. So you're looking at that. So that's that. That's if his current trajectory of making this value. But say he thinks he's really good. He's like, I probably can do 4 hours a day, 4 steps per hour. Well, then he's on a different one. He's on the blue. So say I have this one son that likes to do 6 hours a day. He likes to do 6 hours in a day. He doesn't always hit 3 days a week, or he doesn't hit 5 days a week, but he might hit 4. Okay, so 4 days a week on 4 steps per hour, it'll put him out at late November, but he'll still be getting out 26 rather than his projected date, which is May 27. But if he was really trying to get May 27, then he could probably go 3 days a week and do something like April. So that gets him right about May. So he could step down, take a day less, and still do 6 hours a day, but just 3 days a week. So this whole thing is designed for my sons so they don't stress over, oh, I didn't do enough hours this week. I didn't do enough steps this week. I don't even know how many steps or hours I'm supposed to do. You know, or for how long, or I don't know. And then they get to a point where they're frustrated and just want to take a break, and it might take 2 or 3 days, and just, I can't do it, Dad. I just need to take a break. I'm like, okay, I understand. Well, this keeps us all on the same page, keeps Mom on the same page, keeps Dad on the same page, and it helps them. So if it wasn't for Marie and her calculations and or whoever she either hired or husband or someone who did it for her, I wouldn't have a clue, because I don't know this program, but I do know how to do the logic. So once I had the template and I started understanding the logic a little bit, and I had ChatGPT, then between Marie and her crew and ChatGPT and my own personal knowledge and my inquisitiveness, things I was wanting to accomplish, I was able to get all this. So I was going to show you this though. Say one last thing is, say he does 6 hours a day, 3 days a week, but then he gets out there, but say he wants to step up to 4 days a week, right, like that. So that's November. It's a year ahead of time. So this orange and this blue are also on this calendar here, this side. You go up here, and then you have, let's see, the orange should have been here. So let's see, November 9/27. Oh, my calendar goes pretty far up, so it's all the way up here. So number 9/27, it puts him that far up. But if he's wanting to go for Missouri, wanting to go to Missouri Science and Technology, he could join this semester after the year starts in basically the semester of 2020-28, the winter semester. He could do that, or the spring semester, as you'd say it. And he could do that or get prep for that, but he wouldn't be able to get into classes before that. So if he was wanting to get into classes at this time period, and he was wanting to walk from Acellus, he would have to change a few things. So let's go back to this here. And what would he want to change? More days per week or more hours per day? So let's put him at more hours per day. And that puts him at March 30th. Okay? So then at March 30th, now he's where he needs to go. He's right where he needs to be, and plenty of time to graduate for college or get have a summer at least, and also time, or spring, late spring, and have time to get ready for graduation, enjoy all that, and actually talk to people at Missouri S&T and arrange maybe a file for financial aid or apply for scholarships or all that. But if he puts it too close, he won't be able to do it. And if he puts it out here, then some of the scholarships will be spoken for because they're for a year and not for a half a year, and so he'll have to wait a whole another time. But then he won't be an incoming freshman. He'll already have college experience, which will then knock him out of some other scholarships because he's already got experience in being in college. Do you see how it goes? It's really how he wants to plan it out, and he has to understand the repercussions of kind of dilly-dallying. I say that, but it's not maybe what he's meaning to do. But just postponing, taking a break here, taking a break there, or just adjusting his hours to where, I just want to take my time. And then he ends up graduating late, and then he's going to miss out on opportunity. It provides him time early on to have more of a relaxation, but it's going to bite him when he's graduating post fall semester start date, and it's going to knock him out of some opportunity. So he has to understand the financial repercussions of that, and it's it could be a lifelong thing that bothers him because he might have to go in debt where he didn't have to, and then he ends up having to graduate from college and then has to work to pay off a debt when all he had to do was work an extra hour a day for a year, and then he could have got out, or 2 years, because they're going to go into an environment where they're working 10, 12 hours a day. So for them to work 4 hours a day on schooling is like what, compared to that. So anyways, this is the basic idea of how this works. Just a big shout out to, again, Marie and her crew and ChatGPT and my ability to do this, and I can't give this away because their license says that, and I can't sell it because I can't share the file. She said it in her thing, don't share this file, which is, in case you're curious, in her version 2. She said version 1 is free. You can take that and you can give that to people. She said that already. But version 2, she said also that she doesn't want people to use it. Right here it says, I'm not affiliated with Acellus in any way. Please do not share this file with anyone. You may, however, share the free version that can be found here, which is the free version. However, on her teacher, in the license that I bought through teacher, it said that I'm not allowed to profit from this particular software in any way. So basically, anywhere, any derivative of it, I can't sell it for commercial use. I don't even know if I can give it away, and I don't think that would be for her. But I'm telling you what, it can be done if you just have the time and desire to get into it and kind of just test yourself and try things out. And so that's where I came with all this stuff. And thanks for putting up with me. I'm hoping you got inspired. All these calculations, again, I always leave this one out when I try to talk about this video that I've done over and over again. Science Live broadcast view, that came from the steps. It just is basically, here's Science Live. And I did a calculation to tell me how many steps or how many rows of data are in the spreadsheet, and it said 19. And that's where the 19 rows comes from. And it's just a calculation. And then the calculation ends up being right here. And it's automatic. I don't have to enter that. I don't have to enter the percentage. I don't have to enter the week. I don't have to enter anything other than at the very beginning when I assigned them a class, and I do that through my parent app, and I get the data from that, and that's how I'm able to put this stuff in. And the kids don't have to do anything except for play with the numbers up here for their projection, and that way they can be more commanders of their future to try to figure things out. Of course, they're going to take some classes because I say that they're going to get their hours in. But if they want to do over and above and graduate early, which they dream about, they have to understand the work that goes involved with that, and they do have to understand that if they take days off, they have to make them up in other ways. Things they have to learn. They're young, but they're going to have to learn it up. And also the way I made this is where this is version 1 of this particular date. All I do is roll on that and press Control click, and then it'll download my most recent version I upload every Sunday. So they'll have a fresh copy to work with, and they'll see all new stats, and they can keep their prior copies for reference if they want, because they would give them that number there, and they can see how it incrementally changes. Of course, I'm going to keep track of that too. But then, so I'll have my own updates and versions locally where it'll update. But this gives them the latest update, and then they can see what their values are, see how well they did. It's like a report card weekly instead of yearly or quarterly, and they get a basic idea of maybe their projections and how. If they're playing with this on their copy local, they can see it and say, oh, what did I put last week that I wanted to do? Have I improved? And it's fun. It's just for fun for them to do. And not just for fun, but for reality, for them to understand the repercussions of their consequences of the things that they choose in the long run, so they can do planning. And that's about it. There's other things I want to fix on this, but it pretty much covers most of what I want to do. Again, I keep saying it, but thank you, Marie, and thank you, ChatGPT, for this, and made my life a whole lot easier.